Everybody, it's Hussein Kabani, your favorite broker, and I'm here with Aima. And we have done 30 leases in 2024, and Aima has a lot to let off her chest about all of these leases.
In fact, I actually had to do it the night before because I was going on a major rant, and Hussein said there's no chance we're recording a 40-minute long podcast. So I let it all out last night.
I just felt like we'll lose a lot of subscribers if she said what she really wanted to say. So I try to tone it down a little bit for our audience sake.
No, I think usually when we talk about leases, sadly, it always ends up being like a negative story because we do face a lot of problems. But at the same time, we were kind of chatting about like why is it that all the stories with leases have been crappy, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing is that we ran into a lot of crappy profiles, and it led us to kind of wonder what the heck is going on over here. Like, we get people that are 24 or 25 years old, and they have completely ruined credit histories, and their jobs aren't all there, and then we have this other person that's like middle of their life, and they have a couple of kids, and they're trying to work like two jobs, and their credit is still not so great and whatever. So it makes us really kind of think about what's going on. Why is this happening? And what does this look like, particularly with the generation that's coming up? Because the way that real estate is going, it just seems like it's going to become unobtainable for a lot of people. And if it is obtainable for a lot of people, then you have to make a critical decision of, are you going to sacrifice the quality of your life in order to own real estate?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to come down to, I think, right? Yeah. Because I gave the stat in another video just now, and it's like, when I bought in 2004 compared to 2023, the average household income in Ontario has gone up 30%, but the price has gone up 70%. So, things are getting really expensive, and what could have been done before probably can't be done right now. So if you still want to do, something now, then it's just going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah.
So I guess this is basically just us kind of saying, hey, like, what's going on? These are some of the issues that we've seen, and maybe might have some suggestions around it.
Yeah, suggestions. And I think, like, kind of to add on to your point, like, I've always looked at, especially ever since working full time with you and having been exposed to a lot of these leases and a lot of people's profiles, there's a lot of, in-depth information that we're become privy to. And I always feel like I always related it back to when we were applying for jobs even, right? And it's like, for one job, like, and we can talk about this as well, because we've gone through this experience, as well, where, you put up one job ad and there's times where we got like 60 applications for one job. And we said, how are you going to choose, right? In that pool of 60 people, who do you choose to chat with? I think that's kind of the same thing with leases as well, which is you have to market yourself the best way possible in order to be that person that stands out amongst that crowd. Like, and especially I feel like in the last few weeks, like you and I chat about it almost daily when we get a new application or we see supporting documents. I don't know what's going on, and we're questioning ourselves, we're questioning people, like, why is it so bad? And I am not sure what the answer is. And
like, let's tell them the story about like one of the houses that we have on lease right now, and the application that we received with the single mom and the kids.
Yeah, like
what's that profile look like?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's a single mom who is in her 50s, and
has a full-time job.
Has a full-time job, and she's actually even getting a second full-time job.
Apparently,
right? So it's, or let's just say that what I'm telling you is the truth, right? So you got a full-time job, which you've been at for like 5-6 years, which is great to see some sort of stability. And then you're also going on contract for a second, which turned out to be another full-time job. So now this mom who's single has 2 full-time jobs. She's got a credit, which is, I would say, decent. But you can see that she's making her payments on time. But at the same time, you can also see that her credit is being used pretty much to the limit that she's allowed to. So you can see that, she's having to use all of that credit. But then she's got 2 kids. And I laughed because when the agent also said to you that, hey, there's a single mom with 2 kids, in our heads, I think we were picturing like 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds or whatever. But then these 2 kids turned out to be a 29-year-old and like a 20-year-old. And a 29-year-old is a full-blown adult. And
that's an adult. That's not a kid.
You're not a kid, right? And so we said, okay, cool. Like, I understand, like 2 full-time does a lot. You can kind of see that she's hustling. And then you say, okay, well, in this profile, you ask the agent, like, what do the kids do? And can we get them to add on to this?
Well, because the thing is that like what it boiled down to is that the one full-time income you can kind of prove, right? And that was coming out to $3,200 net. And then we're leasing a place for $2,650.
Yeah.
So when you bridge the gap between $2,650 and 32, like there's not a whole ton of money there, especially if you have 2 kids, right? That are going on the application as dependents. And then she has a second full-time job, which shows us a contract end date in like 20 days from now. So it's like, hey, is this really full-time? We even go back to that person and we're like, hey, listen, like if she's always, because the agent said that they've always worked full-time jobs, 2 full-time jobs. We're like, okay, well, show us an NOA, right? Like for the last 2 years to prove that it's been steady income. Otherwise, I have a full-time job, which I say okay to, and then you're showing me something else that I can't really validate that this is going to move forward on. And even if it is going to move forward, it's not consistent, right? So I need to see consistent proof of income.
And you can't bet on what the future, what you know what I mean? Sometimes you can, like, oh, if you're dealing with it on a personal level, maybe you could take a bet on someone, which I know you have in the past. But when you're dealing with someone else's asset, you can't just say, I'm going to sell you on a promise that's coming, right?
So in that sense, we did ask for we asked, hey, you got a 29-year-old. She apparently works. So like, why don't we add her to the whole application or whatever?
And, you know, they didn't give us too much detail except for the 29-year-old is just starting out. And therefore, there's no credit to be provided and there's no stable job. She's just starting her own business right now. And therefore, there's no value add. Let's just put it that way. And like I talked to Zain about this right after and I said, what's going on? Like a 29-year-old at the very minimum, I can understand if you're going through like a, you know, trying to understand which job you want to be at, which business you want to start. I can understand that aspect of it. But a 29-year-old should at least have had like a couple of credit cards at that time. And you should at that point. Maybe she does. And maybe you do, and maybe it's just so bad that you can't present it.
Credit score is 564.
Yeah, like, you know, like I just feel like as a 29-year-old, if you should have one or the other. If the job is a crisis, then your credit should be on point. And if your credit is a problem, then you should be able to show that, hey, I'm improving it and I'm doing X, Y, Z to get to.
But there was no initiative, I guess. That's what we're trying to say here. We have, if we take it at face value, we have a mother that's working 2 full-time jobs with a 29-year-old and I think a 20 or a 23-year-old, and she's the one trying to float this boat. I don't know, in a lot of families that I know that wouldn't have been working. Like if this was like an Indian or Pakistani family, you know, I got to call it out because these are the families that I'm more intertwined with. That 29-year-old would be going out and working the 2 jobs, not the mom.
100%.
So we're like, I guess what we're trying to get to is that we're seeing this kind of in applications and stuff like that. And we're seeing a shift in like responsibility wise.
And like we're of that, like we're millennials too. And I told the saying that, like we have a competition, like they don't have a competition amongst ourselves. I have one with my siblings and we're like always who has a higher credit score.
It's me, by the way.
It is the same. I'm trying to beat him. But my point is that these are the things that we find important. And I was going to say that at the risk of sounding like, oh, we're like the old people now saying this is the values or this. But the truth of the matter is credit score mattered when my parents first came here. It matters now. It matters now, and I feel like it's
likely
always
going to matter in the future, and maybe even more so, right?
Yeah, whether it's for more, like you said, whether it's for purchasing or for leasing.
And you know what? People just say like their credit score, right? But it's also about how you're managing your credit. So it's not even just saying one thing, like, but it's basically giving you, like, for me, a credit report gives me someone's behavior. Like it tells me how you behave as a person, right? So if you have $10,000 credit, like, and if you have a story against it, that's fine. But like, you know, we've seen people that have had like a $25,000 line of credit. And we're like, yo, what's this all about? It's all maxed. And they're like, oh, we had a wedding. I was like, and now you want to rent a $2,200 condo. Like, I don't know how much I trust this person living in that condo at this point right now.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
And even like to your point, we have had a couple of people who are brand new to the country. They're still starting to build out their credits. And so their score may look like it's 600, which you know, okay, you're 1 point away from being in the 5s, but you can see that they have 2 credit cards. They're like, even if it's $1,000 limit, like whatever, they're using $70 worth of it. They're making that, at least gives you a picture. Like to your point, it's showing you how you manage your money, and you can still get around that.
So the point is that you might have a 640 credit score, and someone else might have a 760 credit score, but I might like the 640 a lot better, just based on the way that credit profile looks, right? And what they're doing with it.
And I was telling Chris this earlier, like that there's another application where the limit this young woman had was $1,000, and you can see 6 months out of the year it's been used over what's allowed. So I get it. Like, I know there's an argument to be made that, you know, the cost of living is very high and things like that. But if someone said you had $1,000 to use, like that's all you have.
Yeah.
Why is it being used over the 1,000? So
it's that's a bad part, like bad thing on their part, but it's also a bad part on our financial institutions part. Dude, decline that transaction. Like that's why you have a credit limit, but they won't decline it. They will approve it, and then they'll charge the person extra fees. Like that's their business, right?
So
but
I get it that it's stressful. Like I get it. Like the cost of living is high. I think
you're set up to fail.
It.
Like honestly, if you don't have self-discipline here right now, like honestly, the system is against you.
Yeah.
So you are actually in the system. You are set up to fail.
Yeah.
And that's the way that these companies actually profit is if you're failing, right?
Yeah.
And even if you think you're winning because you have like 4 mortgages and whatever, you're probably still losing if you don't own a whole chunk of that mortgage because at the end of the day, guess who's getting rich? Whoever you're paying the interest to. Like I want to be on the flip side of this whole thing where I want to lend out the money because I know that's probably a smarter play. And just to put it into context about that, is like, Grant Cardone, I heard him say this, is like, a bunch of bankers got together and they basically just said, yo, how are we going to get rid of this money? Like we need to give this money to somebody so they can pay us return on it. Let's create the American dream. Let's create housing and we will mortgage them on these houses. And that's how we're going to get money. Like this is what it's about, guys. So if you get caught in that, like that's going to become a problem for you. But what we're talking about right now still, or the point that you want to try to drive home today is that, hey, like the people that we're seeing up and coming and whatnot, it's just like, we're seeing a lot of misuse of credit. We're seeing like, maybe not maximizing potential and maybe not thinking things out about how they're going to play out and how your future is going to actually look.
And this always relates back to the conversation we have a lot with a lot of different people at different stages in their life, which is why are you doing what you're doing? So what's the purpose? And I feel like that conversation should have started way earlier. And then again, like I was doing some research on it and just trying to figure out like why has it gone so bad over the last little while. And then a point that came up was lack of education on financial literacy. But I didn't have that either. You know what I mean? Like I didn't grow up in like high school didn't have.
You know what? It's different, I think, because the thing is that we didn't have maybe financial literacy classes, and they probably don't exist still right now.
They don't.
But the thing is that we didn't have any money. So the thing is that
there was nothing to manage.
There's nothing to manage. But I find the problem is we were actually having dinner on Saturday with somebody, okay?
Yeah.
And they basically said, yeah, I'm 47 years old. I got 2 kids, and I'm going to make sure that they are set up. I may, at the risk of sounding like a dick, like I'm going to basically say if I was in that guy's position, and maybe I feel differently if I have 2 young kids. My goal is not to set up their life. My goal is to give them the tools. Like I think the worst thing that you can give somebody is money and think that you're helping them. I don't think that's a good tool to give somebody. It's like that thing, like you give a hungry man a fish, like you fed him for a day, teach him how to fish, like they got food for life kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't think giving somebody money, and that's, I think, what's been happening. There has been a wealth transfer, and like maybe people my age right now are saying, hey, I didn't have X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to give this to my kid, make sure they have this, make sure they have. What is their motivation? We didn't need financial literacy class because we didn't have any money, and we got to figure out how to get the money. So we actually had to learn financial literacy on our own if we wanted to succeed, right? But the thing is, these guys don't have any motivation to do it. So what ends up happening? They get a bunch of cash, or they think that they're going to get a bunch of cash, or they're just privileged and they don't know how to manage it.
That's where my confusion is, because I feel like what you're describing, we've seen that, but then we've also seen the example we just gave of a single mom just hustling, trying to work 2 jobs. But I'm not seeing money in
but
their
the
situation.
Difference of that is that you think that I like, again, I'm not trying to be calling out or be racist or whatever else like that, but like I don't know, in an Indian household or a Pakistani household, I don't think that would be the case. Like that parent would be like, dude, you're going to bring us some money.
And I think then it goes back to what we've talked about a lot as well, which is like what kind of what are kids being exposed to, right? Like what's being taught in school, and if you have any extracurriculars, like what are you being exposed to? So that mentality that you're talking about, that India parents drill, and maybe there's other cultures out there that do the same as well. So, but we're saying that because we've been brought up in that culture. Like is that what should be taught then in schools and things like that, which is, hey man, like you got to do X, Y, and Z. And I don't think
this is a school thing, man, because the school doesn't want you to succeed. Like in my opinion, I don't think the school wants you to succeed. Like the curriculum, the way that it's set up right now, and we don't have kids, so I don't really know firsthand. But what I'm seeing the product come out of there, it's not meant for people to succeed. Like who's that dude that did one of these videos, and he basically shows how an automobile has progressed in 100 years, how a computer has progressed, how different things have progressed. Look at the school.
Yeah.
Same thing, 9 to 5. You're basically designed to be a slave.
Yeah, sitting on
So
a
so the
desk
thing is
and-
that
yeah.
this education needs to come from people at home. Like this is your
Yeah.
parents' responsibility, I would say, is to basically educate the kids.
Yeah.
We see a lot of parents doing it the right way as well right
Yeah,
now,
we do,
right? Like they
yeah.
give them a little bit of allowance, teach them, okay,
Yeah.
split up your money. Like you're going to put this much into savings, this much
Yeah.
into donation, this much into your own spending and
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? So I think that in lieu of the school doing it, because I don't trust the school system is going to do it,
Yeah.
I think that education part needs to come from home. The problem that you wanted to address today is that what do you do with the bracket or how do you guide the bracket that's already kind of there and confused?
Yeah, and at the same time, like I was saying this to both you and Chris, which is I don't want to sound like that, like I'm that person that's like talking, like, you know how our parents talked, like there was a generation that talked down on us and said that we were lazy and we were all gonna become like garbage pickers or whatever. I don't want to sound like that, but I told the saying that because we're seeing so many of these applications and profiles and young kids and, you know, people that are like 18, 20, 25, 27, 30, and even 50, because we're being so much exposed to the situation, I just feel like there has to be some sort of like,
Well, it's concerning.
which is concerning. And I'm like almost like driving the importance of marketing yourself properly. Like I get it, like social media has a different influence now than it did when I was growing up or when you were growing up.
So what do you think that is? Do you think it's a disconnect of what reality is, like what the reality is
Could be,
versus
right?
what you're seeing on social media?
Yeah.
Like I think that people are sometimes in certain cases, people think that, you know, I should be at this point for whatever reason. Like if I go to this school, I should be in this circle. If I get my real estate license, I should be like Hussein. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I just feel like there's a big gap. What I'm finding anyways with this new age, like this new population
Maybe it's
coming
the
in.
need to just kinda
It's
get
just
that.
like because you got this, you think that you should roll in my circle now.
Yeah.
Like, is there any input into getting there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where the disconnect is. And I think like I would love to hear what people have to say. Like we have these conversations within our circle. I get to hear people's point of view, but I'm just confused as to what is considered important now. And I've told you this before, like everybody chooses to display their prettiest moments, you know, on social media. There is a picture out there that you have to, you know, do X, Y, and Z, and this is how like an ideal life should look like. Is that what, you know, people are chasing and then losing in touch with reality in the process of it?
100%.
But all in all, I was just coming from like a big sister perspective. I just feel like people and a really good friend of yours said that, you know, if you don't point this out, if you don't have this conversation, if you don't tell the next, you know, circle that's coming up that, hey man, you gotta keep in check, you gotta care about your credit, you gotta care about your job and things like that, then you're really setting them up for failure too, right?
I mean, that's a perfect segue to say, hey, like, you know, like what you were saying, like people need to present themselves in a better way. Like credit is very important. My uncle told me this a long time ago. He's like, there's two things of survival in Canada. One thing is your credit. Make sure you have a good credit score, good credit report. And the other thing is your driver's license. Because you ain't getting far without a driver's license, right? So maybe with Uber, this is old advice now, but like the credit report thing is still very, very valid. So I guess the point is that like you still have to try to drive. And then I think that if you don't want to or you don't see a reason to, then I think you have to also be ready to accept what's going to happen,
what
right?
the end result is.
The thing is, if you keep getting rejected for lease applications or if you don't get that job or whatever else like that, it's not the world's fault, right? It's something you have to look at yourself. You have to look at what the common denominator is over here.
And then people say like, it is what it is, you know, we're being ourselves. If I want to like,
but that's fine.
Which is fine. But I still feel like you should still have likable qualities. You should still have marketable qualities.
But don't expect that.
Yeah.
Don't expect something if you're not going to
fit
it. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, and it's bad to say, well, I'm different and I want to be different and whatever else. That's perfectly fine. I have zero wrong with that. Like, and you do you.
Yeah.
But don't be upset when the general population basically says, no, I don't like that.
Way,
you know what I mean? Like you can't be upset at that. Like you've made a very unique and individual decision.
And I and as you're saying that, I'm also thinking like, you know, we're talking about like the young generation, like, but I also feel like I'm trying to figure out what's in the air nowadays, because we've had actually firsthand experience with even hiring somebody who isn't in that age bracket, someone who's older, but I've got the same type of feeling, which was expecting like a really great outcome and putting very little into it. And we
Well,
experienced
what was
that.
that? What happened? Like
So-
we were updating a system.
Yeah, like so first of all, like we have gone through a lot of applications. We've interviewed a lot of people, and we're always getting stalled
We've
at
gone
one
through
point.
like maybe 300 applications this year.
Yeah, and like you know,
Maybe let's call it 365. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like one a day.
yeah, sure. And then like either it's a phone interview or a Zoom interview, and then you finally get it in person. Then we came to a point just once this year where we actually got somebody on board. We hired someone, and we were obviously very excited about it because we need the help. And it was somebody that wasn't in that young age bracket, so we were expecting some sort of like maturity and some experience that came with it. But I felt the same thing. I felt that this person was looking for like the reward right away. Like one example that you were just thinking about in your head was like something really simple like data entry. Without getting too much into it, I literally just said, these are the 3 things I need inputted into our CRM, and you know, it's kind of like a test. Like this is what I need done. And the response I got was, well, you have the system open. I don't understand why you couldn't do it yourself.
I mean, that was her whole job. She was hired to help administrate things.
But do you see what I mean? Like that comment is ridiculous to me. Like if you were told to do something, and mind you, you've just started this new position, and you're being asked to do something, and your initial response is, well, why can't you do it yourself? Yeah. It's ridiculous to me. Or even like to a point where like wanting to get like I can't find the English word for this, but wanting to get that reward right away. Like we wanted to send a newsletter out, but this person they put their name in there, and they gave.
She wants recognition, right?
The recognition, yeah. So I feel like for someone who's just been at this job for 2 weeks, you're just getting the hang of the deal. You're learning, but at the same time, while you're learning, you want to be recognized right away. And I just found that very off-putting as well. And it was obviously like a character personality, and it's not the feeling that you and I were going for when we set out to hire somebody. But anyway, I guess my point is that I would love to hear other people's perspective, because I don't know if I've just been poisoned by all of this negative stuff I've seen this year, and I just feel like, oh man, like what are we seeing? What are we doing? Are we doing something wrong? Like what's going on?
Hey, you know what? It's an individual's decision. I think my bottom line, I don't know what we're going to really get through with this video, but my bottom line on this really is that, hey, do what you want. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it at all. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm coming out of is do it.
Do what you want. But at the same time, advice is do better.
I don't have advice. But but the thing is that if you get something that you don't like, don't be surprised, and don't be like I would say you can't consider yourself a victim to it. Yeah. Like if you've put yourself in that situation and you're getting results that you don't like, well, maybe you need to change something that you're actually doing. Yeah.
So maybe it's not advice. Like a lot of people do, Hussein, come and ask you like, why? How do you do it? For example, someone's asked you that question. So yeah, you can do you.
Because I'm old and bitter, and I just follow the same process over and over again. No. As much as I don't like it. What did I tell you this morning? What did I tell you last night I'm going to do?
Zane's going to have the same meal.
No. What did I tell you last night? Because I needed to get up because we haven't been getting up on time. What did I tell you last night I'm going to do? So this is stupid old school thinking.
Yeah, Zane's like, I'm going to get myself out of bed.
What time?
At 5:30 a.m.
5:15.
5:15 a.m.
And how?
And he said, I'm gonna literally drop myself out of bed. Like even if I hit my knees, I'm gonna
throw myself out of bed. And even if I land on my knees, I don't care. I'm going to throw myself up out of bed.
Like either the ambulance is gonna take me out of this house because I busted my knees, or I'm getting up.
But one way or the other, I'm getting out of this bed. Whatever the next outcome is, I don't know. But if I'm smart, I'm gonna get up on my own will. And I did. And I did, guys. It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Anyway, it's not advice. It's just like, oh man.
But that's what you say. Is like, hey, how do you do it? Well, I think I
throw myself out of
but
bed.
the thing is that the point is that my mindset is a very tough, right? So the thing is that I'm going to do things that are very uncomfortable. Cold shower. Yeah. I try to get this girl, and she's done good, to like stand in the cold shower. You know what I mean? And the thing is that like, why? Yeah, it's a psychotic thing to do. What are you really getting out of it? Probably nothing. But guess what? You're testing yourself. You're testing your brain. How can you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation? Why do I have to do that? Well,
To be honest, I still don't agree with that. I like my comfort, but I understand.
but you test yourself, right? Like you put yourself in uncomfortable situations. So when you're in real life and you're in an uncomfortable situation, you know what that feels like. You know how to manage it. You know how to breathe through it. Like there are points of doing these things, like putting yourself in a weird situation. How do I say, what do I credit, whatever, if you want to call it success of what I've had in my life right now? Because I've put myself in a very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
I've signed up for shit I don't even know how to pay for.
Yeah.
But you've
Actually,
put
you're still
yourself
doing
in
that,
that.
yeah.
You've put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
I signed up for PCC. It's like what, $160,000 deposit. I have no idea where the last 3 payments are going to come from. Chris, you got some spare change, bro. I need that back. December invoice not being paid. But you know what I mean? Like you figure it out. I'm not recommending anyone go sign up for condos that they don't know how to pay for, but at a smaller scale, like my first condo cost me $1,150 a month, and I made $1,200. Well, I drove without gas and other things.
Oh man, we need a whole different podcast. Like I feel like everyone's seen this like side of you that's now. You should have a podcast of all your old stories and like, oh man, Hussein has some crazy stories.
But that's how it's built up, right? Yeah. So, and that's why I'm always like, dude, like, how do you think you're going to get from here to here? Like you've missed the middle part of this.
Yeah.
So I think that's what my discrepancy is in a lot of this stuff. That's my thing. And how is it going to be fixed?
I don't know.
Y'all need to work on yourselves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, but you know what? At the end of the day, guys, like if you've made it this far, I think this is, how long is this, Chris?
This has been a long one.
Woo! It's okay. I told you this is 10 minutes, but this is 28. If you've made it this far, I don't know why.
28 minutes?
Yeah. But if you've made it this far,
and
I don't know why, I feel bad for you, but let us know what you guys think anyways, right? Like if you've made it this far and you're in this conversation, how are you guys, how are you guys seeing this go?
Yeah.
Are you guys seeing this? How are you guys dealing with it? Actually, are you those people that are kind of stuck in that situation and trying to figure out where to go? Like where are you stuck? I'd like to understand that perspective as well.
And I'd like the real perspective. Like we'll close it right after this. I met someone over the weekend while we were getting ready for our family wedding, and her and I were having a chat, and she actually pointed out things that she's seeing in her kids that she's like, I'm not understanding why my kids are doing this. And I love that because she was so real. And she was just giving these stories, and she's like, I'm not sure why they act like that, because this is what I did. So I do want to hear some parents out there, some real stories, and kind of do a little comparison. Are we all just going nuts, or what's happening?
Well, let us know. All right, guys, this is Team Kabani, and if you guys know someone that's looking for an administrative job, working with 2 very talented people, myself and Chris, reach out to us. Let us know if you know anyone, but we need some help because we're definitely not doing 30 leases next year.
We need somebody with common sense, someone who's detail oriented and organized.
All right, Aima really went out on this one. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're watching, until next time, remember one thing.
Get Kabani, get sold.
Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold. Sell it, sell it, sell it, sell it, sold.